The air in the conference room seemed to have frozen into ice. Outside the window was a gray, overcast sky, the endless drizzle shrouding the steel jungle in a bleak atmosphere. I closed the thick black leather folder in front of me, making a soft snap. In a conference room so silent you could hear a pin drop. The sound was like a judge's gavel coming down. On both sides of the long walnut conference table sat the core executives of the Hudson Spire project. Just minutes ago, they had been talking about it with confidence, as if this skyscraper still on the drawing board was already New York's new landmark. But now, each of them was ashen-faced, their terrified gazes shifting between me and the man beside the head of the table. That was Stephen Thorne. He wore a well-tailored deep navy blue suit, with vintage Tiffany cufflinks, his hair combed immaculately. After 3 years apart, he still maintained that captivating facade of an elite young gentleman. But at this moment, all the composure and elegance on that handsome face had shattered, replaced by utter disbelief. "Victoria, no, Miss Sterling." Stephen's voice was hoarse, as he tried to maintain his last shred of dignity. "Are you serious? Suspending the investment? Do you know what this means? Once the schedule is delayed, the penalty will be hundreds of thousands of dollars every day." I didn't answer him immediately. I raised my wrist, glanced at that minimalist platinum watch, then lifted my head unhurriedly, my gaze cutting into his line of sight with the precision of a scalpel. "Mr. Thorne, allow me to correct you on 2 points." My voice was steady, calm, devoid of any warmth, as if stating some objective truth. "First, as a newly appointed partner at Aurora Capital, I have the authority to exercise veto power over any project with a risk rating exceeding the red line. Second, the penalty clause is your problem, not mine." I stood up, my high heels clicking out a crisp rhythm on the floor, and walked to the enormous floor-to-ceiling window, my back to them. "According to our due diligence, the imported facade stone used for Hudson Spire not only violates federal trade compliance regulations due to its specific origin, but its actual procurement price is also 30% higher than the market average." I turned around, the corner of my lips curving into a faint arc of mockery. "Stephen, do you think Aurora Capital's money grows on trees? Or do you think I spent these 3 years in London just having afternoon tea, unable to even read basic financial statements? That was for artistic effect." Stephen shot to his feet, both hands braced on the table, his knuckles white from the pressure. "That was in pursuit of ultimate perfection. Victoria, you used to understand my design philosophy better than anyone. You know that in this location, only that kind of stone could. I used to understand you because I was your fiancé." I coldly cut him off, the last trace of warmth from the past in my eyes completely snuffed out. "But now, I'm your investor. On my balance sheet, there's no column for art, only profit and loss. Your perfection, in my eyes now, is a serious financial violation." I walked back to the table, tapping my fingertip on the capital injection suspension document. "I'm giving you 3 days. I want to see a new supplier list and compliance report. Otherwise, I want mine triggering the VAM agreement and kicking you out before this project falls apart." Meeting adjourned. I didn't spare anyone another glance, grabbed my handbag, turned and walked toward the door. A suppressed commotion erupted in the conference room behind me, but I turned a deaf ear as I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped into the corridor lined with plush carpet. Hurried footsteps came from behind. "Victoria, wait." A hand grabbed my elbow. The grip was strong, laced with urgency and some kind of suppressed anger. I stopped in my tracks, didn't turn around, just glanced sideways, my gaze falling on the hand gripping my expensive cashmere coat. It was a pair of hands I had once deeply cherished, hands that had gently stroked my hair countless times while sketching. 3 years ago, it was also these hands that held another woman, that so-called sworn sister Emily Vance, declaring in front of me the so-called bond that transcended family between them. "Let go," I said calmly. Stephen seemed momentarily shaken by my tone, but he didn't let go. Instead, he moved around to face me, those deep eyes filled with bloodshot veins and pain. "Is this your revenge? Because I left without saying goodbye 3 years ago. Victoria, you disappeared for 3 whole years. I searched all over New York, even went to Paris. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. And now you come back just to destroy everything I've worked for." "Explain?" As if I'd heard some kind of joke. I finally looked at him properly. At this very moment, looking at this man I once loved so deeply, there wasn't a single ripple in my heart, only an absurd sense of ridiculousness. "Stephen, are you trying to explain that Emily's 6-week pregnancy checkup report was fake? Or are you trying to explain that your mother announcing at the Thanksgiving dinner in front of everyone that she was carrying the Thorne family's first grandchild was a misunderstanding?" Stephen's face instantly turned deathly pale. his pupils contracting sharply. You knew. No, that was an accident. Emily was very emotionally unstable at the time. She had severe anxiety disorder. The doctor said she couldn't be upset. You went along with her claim that she was carrying your child just to soothe the patient's emotions, and when she pulled out a forged paternity test, you chose to stay silent, leaving me standing there like a clown. I didn't even want to listen anymore and directly pulled out a small bottle of hand sanitizer from my bag. That was 3 years ago. We clarified it later. The child was never born. That has nothing to do with me. I squeezed out a pump of clear gel and, right in front of him, slowly and deliberately applied it to the sleeve he had just touched and my wrist. The evaporating alcohol brought a wave of coolness. It was an extreme form of germophobia, a thorough disinfection of the past. Stephen watched my actions, frozen in place, the pain in his eyes as if brutally pierced by this gesture. This was more humiliating for him than any hysterical screaming. You actually find me disgusting. His voice trembled. No, I'm just doing risk management. I tossed the hand sanitizer into the nearby trash bin, making a dull thud. Whether it's bacteria or low-quality emotions, I don't want to be tainted in the slightest. Stephen, as the investor representative, let me kindly remind you, it's work hours now. Instead of reminiscing about the past with me here, why don't you go check how much renovation money your anxiety-ridden sister's gallery has embezzled from the project? With that, I walked straight to the elevator and pressed the button. The elevator door slowly closed, shutting that once spirited man out of sight. The metal doors reflected my exquisite yet cold makeup, and I took a deep breath, steadying my breathing. The first battle, won without any suspense, but it was merely a warm-up. I stepped out of the elevator and arrived at the high-ceilinged lobby on the first floor. The rain was falling harder, pattering against the glass curtain wall. A black Bentley was already waiting by the curb the dedicated car Aurora Capital had provided for me. However, just as I stepped through the revolving door, a figure in a white lace dress suddenly rushed out from the lounge area on the side. She was holding 2 cups of scalding Starbucks coffee, and as if she wasn't watching where she was going, crashed straight into me. Oh no, a soft, delicate cry of surprise. Although I was already on guard and dodged to the side, the scalding brown liquid still inevitably splashed onto my Hermes Birkin bag and the hem of my cream-colored trench coat. I stopped in my tracks, watching coldly at the woman who had fallen to the ground, her eyes instantly reddening, looking utterly pitiful. Emily Vance, 3 years now, and her act was still as clumsy as ever, yet damn effective. Employees and visitors passing by stopped in their tracks, pointing and whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." Emily lifted her head, that face still as delicate as a porcelain doll, tears coming on cue, hanging perfectly on her eyelashes. "Miss, I didn't mean to. I was just too eager to bring Stephen his coffee. I really didn't see you." As she spoke, she frantically tried to reach out to wipe my bag, but when she saw my cold gaze, she pulled her hand back like a startled fawn. "It's okay," she asked timidly, her voice just loud enough for everyone around to hear. "I know my coffee stained your bag, but I really can't afford to pay for it. Please don't be angry." Okay, this was her signature move, using the posture of the weak to seize the moral high ground first, putting the other party in the position of bully. 3 years ago, she used this exact trick to make Stephen and the entire Thorne family think I couldn't tolerate her, that I was being aggressive. Too bad. The me now is no longer that architecture student who would swallow her anger for the sake of so-called dignity. I looked at her like I was watching a hamster trying to perform wrestling in front of a lion. "No need to apologize," I spoke calmly, my voice so composed that the onlookers around were stunned for a moment. A hint of smugness flashed in Emily's eyes, as if she thought I had compromised once again. "Give her my lawyer's business card." I turned my head and said to the assistant who had followed closely behind me. The assistant immediately handed over a gold-embossed business card, placing it on the marble floor in front of Emily. "This bag is Himalayan crocodile leather, market value estimated at $250,000. This trench coat is the Rose Current Season Haute Couture, $4,500. I looked down at her from above, my tone devoid of anger, only the matter-of-fact manner of a business negotiation, plus the time cost of dealing with this stain making me late for my afternoon meeting with SEC officials. "I'll have the legal department send you a detailed claim list." Emily's expression instantly froze on her face, her tears not even having time to fall. "Also," I bent down slightly, whispering in her ear in a voice only the two of us could hear, "Miss Vance, stop putting on this cheap act. The most important thing I learned in 3 years on Wall Street is this: tears are worthless in the face of capital. Since you love delivering coffee so much, you'd better deliver more. Because once that gallery of yours used for money laundering gets shut down, this might be your only career option. With that, I straightened up, ignoring the collective gasps around me, and strode past her in my heels, walking toward the black sedan in the curtain of rain. The car door opened, and a man was sitting in the back seat. He was holding a copy of the Wall Street Journal, and upon hearing the commotion, he slightly turned his head, revealing a face with deep-set features and a hint of mixed heritage. That was Adrian Blackwell, the man at the helm of Aurora Capital, and the man who pulled me back from hell over the past 3 years and personally forged me into a sharp blade. Such a big show on your first day back. He closed the newspaper, his voice deep and magnetic, carrying a hint of an elusive smile. It seems our Queen Victoria is already ready to go on a killing spree. I got into the car, letting the assistant deal with the stains on my trench coat, my gaze fixed on the figure outside the window still sitting dazed on the ground, a cold smirk on my lips. This is just the beginning, Adrian. The real show is yet to come. The Bentley glided smoothly through the curtain of rain, the cabin filled with a faint scent of cedar, the cologne Adrian always wore, cold and restrained, just like the man himself. The Thorne family reacted quickly. Adrian didn't look up, his fingers sliding across the iPad, the glow of the screen illuminating his chiseled profile. 10 minutes ago, Stephen's mother, the esteemed Mrs. Thorne, called our PR department, hinting that if we don't stop the malicious audit of the project, she'll use the family's influence in New York's high society circles to have us benched at next season's charity gala. I let out a scoff, took the Evian water my assistant handed over, and moistened my throat. Typical old money behavior. They always think this world is still that gilded age where only a few surnames called the shots. Too bad. Today's Wall Street only recognizes data, not surnames. So, how do you plan to respond? Adrian finally looked up, a playful glint flickering in those deep gray eyes. After all, if you don't give an explanation, those old fogies on the board might have opinions. They're greedy, but they're also afraid of trouble. Respond. I pulled out a document from my handbag and tossed it directly onto the leather seat. This is my response. It was a preliminary audit report issued by PwC, with the word confidential printed in bright red on the cover. Over the past 3 years, the renovation budget for the Hudson Spire project went over by a full $40 million. Half of it flowed to an art consulting firm called Vance Artworks. I pointed to a line of data in the document. Although this company's legal representative is some unknown proxy, the real controller is none other than that Miss Emily Vance who was just putting on a sob story in the lobby. Adrian raised an eyebrow and picked up the document, flipping through it quickly. Purchasing so-called contemporary art at inflated prices to decorate public areas. That's quite a retro move. But this level of related party transaction, while against regulations, isn't exactly a shocking scandal in real estate circles. At most ITLL make Stephen pay some money back, or resign. If that's all there was to it, I would have underestimated their greed far too much. I leaned forward, my tone turning icy cold. Look at page 15. Some of these so-called artworks actually have procurement lists coming from certain sanctioned areas in Syria and Damascus, although they forged the certificates of origin, claiming they came from Italy. Money trails don't lie. Adrian flipped to page 15, his previously casual expression instantly turning serious. He was also a veteran hunter on Wall Street, so he naturally understood what this meant. Violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, plus possible involvement in financing terrorism or money laundering. He closed the file, a cruel smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Victoria, you're looking to uproot the entire Vance family. Once this gets to the FBI or the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control OFAC, it won't be as simple as just going to prison. They crossed the line first. I watched the skyscrapers constantly receding outside the window, my eyes ice cold. 3 years ago, they used forged medical reports to force me out. I didn't hold it against them, that was a matter of personal ethics. But now, they're using my money to fill this kind of black hole that could drag Aurora Capital straight to hell. That's challenging my professional bottom line. In that case, Adrian tossed the file back to me. Let's have the audit team officially move in. Not just finance will need to check legal compliance too. I want Stephen to know that every word he signs in that position is going to cost him. I nodded, but there wasn't much satisfaction of revenge in my heart, only a calm sense of relief. This was just the first step. I was going to crush their prized respectability under the iron fist of the law. The next morning, Aurora Capital's audit team descended upon Thorne Architecture like a pack of well-trained hounds, marching in with overwhelming force. At the same time, sternly worded lawyers' letters were also delivered to the Vance Artworks office, as well as Emily's luxury apartment on the Upper East Side. However, I underestimated Emily Vance's tactics. Or rather, I underestimated how much chaos a person with absolutely no moral bottom line could stir up in this age where traffic is king. Just 2 hours after the audit team moved in, a video spread like a virus on TikTok. In the video, Emily was wearing that coffee-stained white dress, without makeup, her face pale and haggard, sitting in front of a background that looked like a shabby rental, though I knew it was the maid's room in her apartment. "Hi, everyone. I'm Emily." She faced the camera, her voice choked with sobs, tears rolling down one by one. "I'm just a small gallery owner trying to make it in New York, and a girl who grew up in a single-parent home. I know I shouldn't be posting this video, but I really have nowhere else to turn." She held up a screenshot of a lawyer's letter from who knows where, with a claim for several $1 million clearly written on it. "Yesterday, I accidentally got dirt on a female Capital executive's bag. I apologized immediately, even kneeled down to beg for her forgiveness. But she not only humiliated me, she also had someone send me this outrageous claim for damages. She said this is Wall Street's rules, that poor people should just accept their fate. I don't know what to do. I'm really so scared." The video didn't name anyone specifically, but insiders in the comments section quickly revealed that the female executive was Aurora Capital's newly appointed partner Victoria Sterling, even attaching a photo of me coldly watching her kneel on the ground in the lobby yesterday. Shot from an extremely cunning angle that only captured my coldness and her pitifulness, public opinion exploded instantly. In this era of spreading hatred toward the rich, the story of Wall Street villainous bullying a lowly little white flower was practically the perfect formula for clicks. In just a few hours, "Feel sorry for Emily" and "Boycott Aurora Capital" had surged into the top 10 Twitter trending topics. My personal social media accounts were instantly overrun. My DMs were flooded with vile insults. Some called me capitalist bitch. Some cursed me to go to hell, and some even threatened to come confront me at the company entrance. It seems our Miss Emily really knows how to exploit the masses' anger. In the office, Adrian watched the negative comments continuously scrolling on the large screen, his tone still calm, even carrying a hint of admiration. To be able to organize such a public opinion offensive in such a short time, there must be a professional PR team behind the scenes. Although the Vance family is on the decline, this centipede is expected. It won't die even when dead. I sat behind the desk, expressionlessly watching that video. Emily in the video was crying like a pear blossom bathed in rain, as if she truly were an angel who had suffered endless grievances. What does she think this is? A Hollywood audition? I closed the video, feeling somewhat nauseous. She's not only lying, she's also insulting the public's intelligence. That shabby room, the painting hanging on the wall, although only a corner was visible, I recognized it as an authentic sketch by Basquiat, with a starting bid of at least $300,000. So this is the so-called poor little white flower. Adrian laughed. The public doesn't care about any of that. They only see tears. Only believe the weak are in the right. Then let them see what true right really is. I stood up, adjusting the collar of my suit jacket. Prepare a press conference. No PR script, just broadcast live. Are you sure? Adrian looked at me. Right now everyone out there wants to see you make a fool of yourself, and the reporter's questions will be very sharp. I want them to ask. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Since she wants to play the public opinion game, I'll play it with her to the end. But my battlefield has never been Twitter mudslinging, it's the courtroom and evidence. At 3 in the afternoon, the first-floor lobby of Aurora Capital had been converted into a temporary press room. Hundreds of reporters crowded the venue like sharks smelling blood, their cameras and equipment aimed at the empty podium on stage. The moment I walked onto the stage, camera flashes went off frantically, almost dizzying, but I didn't back down, nor did I wear sunglasses to shield myself. I just stood there, wearing a sharply tailored black tuxedo suit, my expression cold, my gaze piercing. "Miss Sterling, what explanation do you have for bullying Miss Emily? Is it true you took personal revenge because you were jealous of her relationship with Mr. Thorne? Does Aurora Capital really support this kind of workplace bullying?" Questions flooded in like a tidal wave, each one dripping with malice. I didn't answer, just quietly waited for the scene to calm down a bit. Then, I signaled the staff behind me to turn on the big screen. What appeared on the screen wasn't some PR statement, but a high-definition screenshot from surveillance footage. The image showed the scene from the lobby yesterday, but the difference was, this was a complete, high-definition surveillance recording with audio. In the video, Emily didn't accidentally bump into mesh, had been hiding behind a pillar all along, and the moment she saw me come out, she deliberately adjusted her angle before rushing out. Moreover, before her fall, there was an obvious pause, as if to confirm the camera's position. Even more dramatic was the audio. Although the lobby was somewhat noisy, after technical processing, you could clearly hear her deliberately raised volume and theatrical tone when she apologized to me, as well as that fleeting, vicious sneer at the corner of her mouth after I turned and left. The scene erupted in an uproar. "This is what you call accidentally." I pointed at the screen, my voice carrying throughout the venue through the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen of the media, as professional financial journalists, I believe you should be interested not only in gossip, but also in the truth." The screen switched to a series of bank statements and scanned contracts. These are all transaction records between Miss Emily Vance Artworks and the Hudson Spire project over the past 3 years. As you can see, this so-called Louis XVI period antique chair, quoted at $50,000, was actually purchased from a second-hand furniture store in Queens for $500. This emerging artist's painting, quoted at $80,000, was actually Miss Vance's own doodle from her studio. As I narrated, the reporters below went from initial skepticism to shock, camera shutters clicking in a frenzy. But that's not even the worst part. My voice suddenly turned cold. According to our investigation, these funds didn't end up staying in the gallery's accounts. Instead, through a series of complex offshore company operations, they were ultimately transferred to an account in the Cayman Islands. And the controller of that account is none other than a core member of the Vance family, who is also currently under investigation by the IRS. That's money laundering. A reporter in the audience who knew their stuff finally shouted out. "Exactly." I stared straight into the camera, as if looking through it directly at Emily and Stephen watching the live stream on their screens. Aurora Capital has officially submitted a report to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, along with a complete chain of evidence. "We have reason to believe that this so-called bullying accusation against me is nothing but a smokescreen to cover up this massive financial crime. As for the astronomical compensation Miss Emily mentioned," I let out a cold laugh. "According to New York state law, victims have the right to seek punitive damages for intentional destruction of property combined with defamation. That lawyer's letter is real, because in my dictionary, criminals don't deserve mercy." The comments in the livestream froze for a few seconds, then instantly flipped. Emily money laundering. Aurora hardcore counterattack. Who is the real bully quickly replaced the previous trending topics. After the press conference ended, I walked off the stage and happened to see Adrian standing by the side door, holding his phone, seemingly having just finished a call. "Nice work, Victoria." He looked at me with a smile. "The FBI just contacted our legal department. They're very interested in the leads you provided. Looks like someone's not sleeping tonight." I took the coat he handed me and draped it over my shoulders, feeling a wave of exhaustion, but more than that, an indescribable sense of exhilaration. "Let's go," I said. "Let's get a drink. This time, I want the best whiskey." However, just as we were about to leave, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, containing only a brief line, yet it made my nerves, which had just relaxed, tense up again. "You think you've won. Beware of Titan Vanguard Fund. That legendary behemoth said to control half of Europe's hidden wealth." I suddenly looked up at Adrian, and found his expression had frozen slightly. Clearly, these waters ran deeper than I had imagined. Titan Vanguard. This name carried no less weight on Wall Street than a nuclear warhead. If Aurora Capital was the lion of the savannah, then Titan Vanguard was the megalodon of the deep sea, mysterious and ancient. It was said to hold the secret funds of several European royal families, with assets more than 10 times that of Aurora. "Looks like we've kicked a hornet's nest." Adrian looked at the message on my phone screen, his brow slightly furrowed, but the fighting spirit in his eyes grew even more intense. "Money laundering at the Vance family's level doesn't need protection from something like Titan. Unless the Vance family is just a pawn in Titan Vanguard's North American layout." I quickly picked up where he left off, my brain racing. What if the Hudson Spire project isn't just a money laundering tool, but a fulcrum for an even larger financial leverage? We exchanged a glance, both seeing the gravity in each other's eyes. This was no longer a simple matter of corporate anti-corruption or emotional entanglement. This was a transnational capital war about to erupt. Over the next few days, the developments confirmed our suspicions. First, a major ongoing acquisition by Aurora Capital in London was suddenly blocked. The seller who had already agreed to the deal suddenly backed out, with an excuse that was extremely perfunctory yet airtight. They had accepted a higher offer from another mysterious fund. Right after that, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission suddenly announced routine compliance inspections on 2 hedge funds under Aurora Capital. While this wasn't uncommon in the industry, at such a sensitive moment, It was obvious someone was stirring things up behind the scenes. The deadliest blow came from the stock market. At Monday's opening, Aurora Capital's stock price plummeted 8% without any warning. Massive short sell orders flooded into the market like a tidal wave, and various anonymous reports alleging Aurora Capital's involvement in insider trading and financial fraud began circulating on the dark web and major investment forums. This is a carefully orchestrated hunt. In the war room at Aurora Capital's headquarters, dozens of screens flickered with nerve-wracking red and green lines. I stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at the bustling traffic of the city below, feeling like I was at the center of a storm. Titan Vanguard has shorted at least $2 billion of our stock. Adrian pointed at a steeply declining curve on the screen. Not only that, they've also teamed up with several short-selling firms to completely strangle us in the options market. They're trying to force us into a margin call. I analyzed calmly. As long as Aurora's stock price drops below the warning line, the banks will force liquidation, and our liquidity will dry up instantly. When that happens, forget about counterattacking, won't even be able to protect ourselves. The atmosphere in the meeting room was oppressively tense. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my decision. As a newly appointed partner, if I lost this battle, I would not only be ruined, but would also drag down all of Aurora Capital with me. Victoria. Adrian walked up to me, his voice low and powerful. The situation is critical right now. Some are suggesting we halt trading immediately, or ask the federal government for help. What do you think? I turned around, looking at the man who had always trusted me, and took a deep breath. Halting trading would only delay death, and asking for help would be showing weakness. My gaze was resolute. Since Titan wants to play big, well, play with them to the end. They want to short us. Then let's give them an epic short squeeze. Short squeeze. The several senior traders present all gasped. This is insane. We need a massive amount of capital to drive up the stock price, and once we fail, the consequences would be unimaginable. We have no way out. I walked to the whiteboard, picked up a marker, and wrote 2 words heavily. Asia. Although Titan Vanguard is powerful, their main capital is all in Europe and North America. In Asia, especially in emerging tech markets, their positioning is relatively weak. I pointed to an area on the map. As far as I know, Titan Vanguard has recently been secretly shorting several Asian semiconductor and AI chip companies, trying to buy at the bottom. That's their cash cow, and also their soft spot. You mean? Adrian's eyes lit up. Besieging way to rescue Zhao. A cold smirk curled at the corner of my lips. We're going to concentrate all available liquid capital, plus the highest leverage, and frantically buy up the stocks of those companies being shorted by Titan in the Asian market, driving the prices up. Force Titan to add margin over there, thereby withdrawing the capital they're using to short us in North America. As long as the slightest crack appears in their capital chain, our long allies in North America will swarm in and blow up those shorts betting against Aurora. This was an extremely bold plan. One could even say betting their lives on it. If successful, Titan would suffer devastating losses. If failed, Aurora would be doomed beyond redemption. The entire conference room fell into a deathly silence. After a long while, Adrian broke the silence. Approved, he said briefly, his eyes full of appreciation and trust. Victoria, this battle, you're in command. If we lose, I'll go bankrupt with you. At that moment, I felt a strength I had never felt before. The next 48 hours were the longest and most thrilling 48 hours of my life. Like a tireless machine, I sat in the center of the war room, commanding hundreds of traders spread across New York, London, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Buy everything, forget the price, sweep it all up, devour every sell order, notify the Hong Kong branch, lock onto Titan's short positions and don't let a single share slip. The Asian markets opened. Those tech stocks that Titan had shorted, which had been hovering at lows, suddenly shot straight up like they'd been injected with adrenaline. 5%, 10%, 20%. The numbers on the screen jumped wildly, with hundreds of millions of dollars changing hands every second. Titan Vanguard clearly hadn't anticipated we would counterattack so ferociously. They tried to dump and suppress in the Asian markets, but under our cost-bedamned buying, all the selling pressure was instantly absorbed. Meanwhile, in the North American market, Aurora's stock price also began to stabilize and rebound. Those long institutions that had been watching from the sidelines, seeing our moves in Asia, keenly smelled blood in the water and joined the battle one after another, starting to bottom fish Aurora's stock. Bulls and bears clashed in a brutal battle across markets on both hemispheres. I drank coffee cup after cup, my eyes so sore I could barely keep them open, but my mind was in a state of extreme excitement. Finally, In the early hours of the third day, the turning point came. An inside tip came through. Titan Vanguard's massive short position in Asia had been forcibly liquidated by the exchange due to insufficient margin. It was like toppling the first domino. Right after that, Titan's short positions in North America started to waver. As Aurora's stock price surged violently, the shorts' losses grew exponentially. They started to panic, scrambling to buy shares to cover their positions and cut their losses. This panic buying further pushed up the stock price, creating a perfect positive feedback loop. The short squeeze worked. When Aurora's stock price hit an all-time high before the close, the entire war room erupted in deafening cheers. Some hugged each other and cried. Others threw documents into the air. Champagne bottles were popped open with pop pop pop. I slumped in my chair, feeling completely drained of all strength. Adrian walked over to me and handed me a glass of champagne. His tie was loosened, 2 buttons of his shirt undone, his face showing exhaustion yet unable to hide his smile. To the Queen. He raised his glass and gently clinked it against mine. I watched the bubbles rising in the glass and drained it in one gulp. The spicy yet sweet liquid slid down my throat, bringing a dizzying rush of pleasure. It's not over yet. I set down the wine glass, my gaze turning sharp again. The Vance family. And that backstabbing Stephen. Now it's their turn to settle accounts. Titan Vanguard's crushing defeat meant the Vance family had lost their last backer. That week was the true apocalypse for the Vance family. The FBI formally indicted Emily and her father on over a dozen felony charges including money laundering, securities fraud, and perjury. If convicted, they would spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. As for Stephen, because he had signed numerous illegal documents for the project, not only was his architect's license revoked, but he also faced massive civil damages and criminal charges. To save him, the Thorne family had to sell off a large portion of their assets. Even their ancestral mansion was put up for sale. Once invincible elite families collapsed overnight. That weekend, I was invited to a charity gala held near Central Park. It was New York high society's premier gathering. Only true winners were qualified to attend. I wore a deep red backless evening gown, my arm linked with Adrian's. As I elegantly stepped into the ballroom, countless gazes focused on Yusa, envy, and flattery. Just then, I spotted a familiar figure in the corner. Stephen. He had obviously snuck in, or rather, been brought in by someone. He was wearing an ill-fitting old suit, his hair disheveled, holding a glass of cheap red wine, his eyes unfocused as he looked at everything around him. When he saw me, his whole body jolted violently, as if he had seen a ghost, or as if he had found a lifeline. He staggered toward me, completely ignoring the waiters trying to block him. Victoria, Victoria, he shouted my name, his voice hoarse and desperate. Adrian instinctively stepped in front of me, but I gently patted his arm, signaling him to move aside. I looked at the utterly wretched man before me, and the last ripple in my heart finally settled completely. Is there something you need, Mr. Thorne? I asked indifferently, not even bothering to use the word X. I was wrong. Stephen looked at me, tears streaming down his face. I know I was wrong. Emily lied to me. She was never pregnant at all. It was all fake. She ruined me. Victoria, please, for the sake of our 7 years together, help me. I have nothing left now. As long as you're willing to help me, I'll do anything for you. He reached out, trying to grab the hem of my dress, but I stepped back and avoided him. Help you? I looked at him, as if looking at a stranger. Stephen, you seem to have gotten something wrong. The one who ruined you wasn't Emily. It was your own greed, stupidity, and cowardice. It was you who did those illegal trades for the sake of so-called perfection. It was you who chose to believe lies to escape responsibility. In the adult world, every choice comes with a price. Your current fate is something you chose yourself. I turned around, not giving him another glance, took Adrian's arm, and walked toward the brilliantly lit center of the dance floor. Behind me, security guards had already grabbed Stephen, dragging him out of the ballroom like garbage. His cries sounded so jarring amid the elegant symphony, yet so insignificant. On the dance floor, Adrian held my waist, slowly turning with the music. How does it feel? He whispered in my ear. It feels. I raised my head, looking at the dazzling crystal chandelier above, a confident smile curling at the corner of my lips. Just like rebirth. Yes, that Victoria who once left New York crying in the rainy night was dead. Standing here now was a partner of Aurora Capital, the new queen of Wall Street, Victoria Sterling. My journey had only just begun.